My girlfriend's brother was lied to by his wife, my ex, when I told him the truth. He was shocked, but what he did? I've seen plot twists in movies, but I never expected to live one. Lisa and I had been dating for a year, and things were great. She was the perfect mix of kind, funny, and easygoing. No drama, no red flags, just pure, uncomplicated happiness. It was the healthiest relationship I'd ever been in, especially after my last one ended in absolute disaster. So when she suggested I meet her family, I thought, sure, why not? I was actually looking forward to it. She always talked about how close they were, and it felt like the next step in our relationship. Big mistake. The moment we walk into her parents' house, I feel it. This weird energy. It's subtle at first, like the air is just a little too thick, a little too charged. Then I see him, standing in the kitchen, beer in hand, looking like he's seen a ghost. Because he has. Lisa's older brother is David. David, as in the husband of my ex, Sarah. The same Sarah who cheated on me 3 years ago with my then best friend. And just when I think this nightmare couldn't get any worse, Sarah walks into the room. She freezes. Her face drains of color. Her grip tightens around the wine glass in her hand, like she might actually drop it. Meanwhile, Lisa is completely oblivious. She's still holding onto my arm, beaming like this is the greatest thing ever. David! Sarah! This is my boyfriend, Mark. Isn't this crazy? Small world, huh? David forces a smile, but his jaw is tight, and his eyes haven't left mine. He's studying me, and I can tell. He knows something's up. Sarah, on the other hand, she looks like she just saw her worst nightmare come to life. I need to get out of here, but there's no escape. Lisa's parents welcome us in. Lisa happily drags me toward the dining room, and before I can even process what's happening, I'm stuck at the most awkward dinner of my life. Sarah barely speaks, stabbing at her food like it personally offended her. David keeps throwing glances my way, his jaw clenched so tight I'm worried his teeth might crack. And Lisa? Lisa is just living her best life, blissfully unaware that she just threw me into a pit of snakes. I try to act normal. I smile. I nod. I pretend like I'm not sitting across from the woman who shattered my trust and beside the man who clearly knows something's off. Then, after dinner, David pulls me aside. His voice is low, controlled. But underneath it, I can hear something else. Something tense. Something desperate. I need to ask you something, he says. Did Sarah cheat on you? I blink. Yeah. You didn't know that? His jaw tightens. She told me you cheated on her. I almost laugh. Wow. It was the other way around. David exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair. I knew it. He looks me dead in the eye. I think she's cheating on me too. And that's when things go from bad to worse. Because David doesn't just suspect. He has proof. I stare at David, trying to process what he just said. He thinks Sarah is cheating on him. And honestly, I'm not even surprised. I should probably feel bad for the guy, but all I can think is, well, karma's a bitch. If he had just asked me about my relationship with Sarah before marrying her, maybe he wouldn't be in this situation. But the way he's looking at me, it's not just suspicion. There's something else. Doubt. Like he already knows the answer. But he needs to hear it from me to confirm what he's been fearing. I knew something was off, he mutters, rubbing a hand over his face. I needed to be sure. I fold my arms. What exactly makes you think she's cheating? David glances toward the dining room, like he's making sure no one's listening, then lowers his voice. She's been lying about where she goes. She'll say she's out with friends, but when I check, they have no idea what I'm talking about. She's always guarding her phone, stepping outside to take calls. He exhales, and she started coming home late. Really late. Smelling like cologne. Oof, that's rough. I should walk away. This isn't my problem, but then, she's doing the same shit to me that she did to you, isn't she? The way he says it, it's not even a question. It's a realization. And suddenly, I feel bad for him because I remember exactly how it felt to be in his shoes. The creeping doubt, the gut feeling that something was off, the second guessing, the late nights wondering if you're just paranoid or if you're being played for a fool. And now, David's stuck in that same hell. Look, I sigh, running a hand through my hair. I don't know for sure, but yeah, it sounds like the same pattern. David nods stiffly. He already knew it. He just needed confirmation. Then his face changes. He hesitates, like he wants to say something else. And then, there's something else. I raise an eyebrow. What? His jaw tenses. We have a kid. I freeze. That's not what I was expecting. For a moment, I don't know what to say. Then finally, shit, man. He lets out a bitter chuckle. Yeah, shit is right. I can see it now. Why this is killing him. If Sarah really is cheating, it's not just about him anymore. There's a kid involved. A kid who didn't ask to be caught in the middle of all this. And just when I think things can't get any worse, Lisa's voice calls from behind us. What are you two talking about? David's head snaps up. He looks at me, pleading. He doesn't want Lisa to know. I have a choice. Do I keep quiet, or do I blow everything up? Lisa adores her big brother. She talks about him all the time, how he's such a great dad, how he and Sarah are the perfect couple. If I tell her what's really going on, it'll wreck her entire image of him, of Sarah, of their family. David clears his throat, forcing a casual smile. Just catching up, talking about work. Lisa narrows her eyes like she doesn't quite believe him, but she lets it slide. Okay. Well, Mom wants everyone back in the living room. She's pulling out the old photo albums. David groans. Oh, great. Embarrassing baby pictures. Can't wait. Lisa laughs, grabbing his arm and dragging him toward the living room. I follow, but David shoots me a quick look over his shoulder. We're not done talking. And he's right. Because as soon as we sit down, I notice something. Sarah is texting. Not just casual texting. No, she's got that hyper-focused, slightly guilty look, like she knows she shouldn't be doing it in front of everyone, but she can't not respond. David notices too. Who are you texting? He asks, his tone light, but there's an edge to it. Sarah barely glances up. Just a friend. Which friend? Her fingers tighten around the phone. Does it matter? David stares at her. Yeah, it kinda does. The tension in the room skyrockets. Lisa shifts uncomfortably, sensing the weird energy. Should I grab more drinks? She offers, trying to break the awkwardness. But David isn't letting this go. Sarah exhales sharply, finally looking up. David, not right now. And just like that, I know. She's lying. I've seen this exact scene before. The dodging, the vague answers, the defensiveness. It's exactly how she used to act when I started questioning her 3 years ago. David's face is unreadable, but I can tell. He knows it too. The worst part? He can't even call her out on it right now, in front of his entire family. So instead, he leans back, clenching his jaw. All right, he says. Not right now. But the way he says it? Sarah knows she's in trouble. David doesn't say another word for the rest of the night, but I can tell. His mind is spinning. Sarah, on the other hand, is pretending everything's fine. She laughs at old family photos, makes small talk with Lisa's parents, and even rests a hand on David's knee like they're some perfect couple. But I see the way her fingers twitch, the way she keeps glancing at her phone, barely hiding the anxiety behind her smile. She knows. She knows David suspects something. And so does Lisa. Because as soon as we get in the car to leave, she turns to me. Okay, what was that? I try to play dumb. What do you mean? You and David. And then David and Sarah. That whole dinner was weird. She eyes me. Did you two know each other before tonight? And there it is. The question I've been dreading. I grip the steering wheel a little tighter. Yeah, kinda. Lisa crosses her arms. And you didn't think to tell me? I sigh. It's complicated. She scoffs. Mark, you just met my entire family, and my brother's wife is your ex. I'd say that's a pretty big deal. She's not wrong. But how the hell do I explain all this without setting off a bomb? So I settle for the half-truth. I dated Sarah a long time ago. I admit. It ended badly. That's why dinner was awkward. Lisa stares at me for a second, like she's processing this new information. Then, finally, she exhales. Okay, fine. But what was with David? I hesitate. Because this is way messier. I don't want to drag Lisa into this drama, but I also don't want to lie to her. And before I can decide what to say, my phone vibrates. A text from David. I need to talk. Now. Shit. Who's that? Lisa asks. I hesitate for half a second. Too long. Her eyes narrow. Mark. I look at her, torn between protecting her and telling her the truth. But I already know this secret won't stay buried for long. And when it comes out, it's going to destroy everything. Lisa doesn't break eye contact, her arms crossed, waiting for an answer. Who just texted you? She asks again. I glance at my phone, then back at her. There's no way I can dodge this. It's David, I admit. Her expression shifts. David? Why is he texting you? I hesitate. How much do I tell her? He just wants to talk, I say vaguely. Lisa gives me a look. Mark, what the hell is going on? I grip the steering wheel. It's complicated. She exhales sharply. You keep saying that, but you're not explaining anything. She shakes her head. First, I find out my boyfriend and my sister-in-law used to date, which, by the way, you never thought to mention. And now my brother is texting you? What? Are you guys best friends now? I run a hand through my hair, my frustration growing. Lisa, I'm trying to handle this the right way. She scoffs. And what way is that? Because from where I'm sitting, it just looks like you're hiding things from me. I hate this. Lisa doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this mess. But at the same time, I can't just tell her everything. Not yet. My phone buzzes again. David. I can't do this anymore. I need answers. I exhale. Look, I need to meet up with him. Lisa's eyes widen. Right now? It's almost midnight. I know, I say, but it's important. Lisa watches me for a second, searching my face for any sign that I'm not about to do something insane. Finally, she sighs. Fine. Go, I blink. Wait, really? She shrugs. If I say no, you're just going to find a way to do it anyway. She leans back against the seat, arms still crossed. But when you get back, you're telling me everything. I nod. Fair. Lisa rolls her eyes, but doesn't say anything else. And with that, I start the car and head off to meet David. I have no idea what I'm walking into. But something tells me this is just the beginning. I pull up to a nearly empty parking lot behind some rundown diner. David's car is already there, his silhouette visible in the driver's seat. I kill the engine, take a deep breath, and step out. David gets out too, his posture tense, shoulders hunched like he's been carrying way too much weight for way too long. Neither of us speak, at first. There's just this heavy silence, thick with unspoken words. Finally, David breaks it. She's cheating, he says, his voice hollow. I exhale. You're sure? He lets out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I saw the messages. I don't say anything. I just let him talk. She went to take a shower after we got home, he continues. Left her phone on the bed. I wasn't even planning to check, but then it lit up. I already know where this is going. It was from some guy named Brandon. David clenches his jaw. Said he missed her and wanted to see her again. I opened the conversation and he shakes his head. It wasn't just friendly texts, man. It was explicit. They've been meeting up for months. I inhale sharply. Months. So Sarah wasn't just sneaking around. She was living a full-on double life. David swallows hard, looking away. I confronted her. I straighten. And? She denied it at first, tried to say it was just a joke between coworkers. He lets out a dry laugh. A joke, right. I nod grimly. Classic Sarah. But when I told her I saw the messages, all of them, she just went silent. His hands clench into fists. And then, you know what she said? She said it wasn't a big deal, that I was overreacting. I shake my head. Unbelievable. David exhales shakily, running a hand over his face. I wanted to scream, throw something, but I couldn't, because our kid was asleep in the next room. Damn. That's when it really hits me. David isn't just dealing with a cheating wife. He's dealing with the fact that his family is falling apart. What are you going to do? I ask quietly. He hesitates. I don't know. His voice is raw. I thought we were solid. I thought... He stops himself, pressing his lips together. And that's when he looks at me. You got out, he says. You escaped her. How did you do it? For a second, I don't know how to answer. Because the truth is, it wasn't easy. I had to rebuild my whole life after Sarah. I had to learn to trust again. And even now, 3 years later, her mess is still affecting me. But David? He has a kid with her. His situation is 1,000,000 times more complicated. I won't lie, I finally say. It's gonna hurt like hell. David nods, like he already knew that. Then he looks at me again. And his next words make my stomach drop. There's one more thing, he says. I brace myself. What? David takes a breath. I don't think the kid is mine. For a moment, all I can do is stare at him. Because holy shit, this isn't just some messy affair anymore. If what he's saying is true, then his entire life, the marriage, the family, everything has been built on a lie. I take a slow breath, trying to process. David. Are you sure? His jaw is tight, his hands clenched into fists. I don't know, he admits, but I can't stop thinking about it. I don't blame him. If I were in his shoes, I'd be losing my mind right now. I hesitate. Why do you think that? He exhales sharply, looking away. Little things, mostly. At first, I never questioned it. I mean, Sarah and I were together. We were trying for a kid. He swallows hard. But as she got older, people started making comments. I frown. Comments? David nods. You know, like, oh, she doesn't really look like you. Or, wow, she's got some strong genes from Sarah's side. He lets out a bitter laugh. At first, I brushed it off. But lately, I can't unsee it. She doesn't look like me at all. I shift uncomfortably. You ever ask Sarah about it? He scoffs. Yeah. You want to guess how that went? I can already imagine it. Sarah probably rolled her eyes, called him paranoid, and flipped the whole thing back on him. She told me I was being ridiculous, David continues, that I was insulting her by even suggesting it. His voice darkens. Then she flipped out and started crying. Called me a terrible husband for not trusting her. I nod grimly. Sounds familiar. David runs a hand down his face. I feel like I'm going crazy, man. I hesitate, choosing my words carefully. David, you have to get a paternity test. He lets out a shaky breath. I know. But there's fear in his eyes. Because deep down, I think he already knows the answer. I just don't know what I'll do if... He stops himself. If the kid isn't his, if his entire life has been a lie, I don't know what to say, so I just clap a hand on his shoulder. One step at a time. David nods, his jaw set. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I see something in his eyes. Determination. He's done being lied to. And something tells me Sarah's about to get the wake-up call of her life. For a moment, all I can do is stare at him. Because holy shit, this isn't just some messy affair anymore. If what he's saying is true, then his entire life, the marriage, the family, everything, has been built on a lie. I take a slow breath, trying to process. David! Are you sure? His jaw is tight, his hands clenched into fists. I don't know, he admits, but I can't stop thinking about it. I don't blame him. If I were in his shoes, I'd be losing my mind right now. I hesitate. Why do you think that? He exhales sharply, looking away. Little things, mostly. At first, I never questioned it. I mean, Sarah and I were together. We were trying for a kid. He swallows hard. But as she got older, people started making comments. I frown. Comments? David nods. You know, like, oh, she doesn't really look like you. Or, wow, she's got some strong genes from Sarah's side. He lets out a bitter laugh. At first, I brushed it off. But lately, I can't unsee it. She doesn't look like me at all. I shift uncomfortably. You ever asked Sarah about it? He scoffs. Yeah. You want to guess how that went? I can already imagine it. Sarah probably rolled her eyes, called him paranoid, and flipped the whole thing back on him. She told me I was being ridiculous, David continues. That I was insulting her by even suggesting it. His voice darkens. Then she flipped out and started crying. Called me a terrible husband for not trusting her. I nod grimly. Sounds familiar. David runs a hand down his face. I feel like I'm going crazy, man. I hesitate, choosing my words carefully. David, you have to get a paternity test. He lets out a shaky breath. I know, but there's fear in his eyes. Because deep down, I think he already knows the answer. I just don't know what I'll do if... He stops himself. If the kid isn't his. If his entire life has been a lie. I don't know what to say, so I just clap a hand on his shoulder. One step at a time. David nods, his jaw set. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I see something in his eyes. Determination. He's done being lied to. And something tells me Sarah's about to get the wake-up call of her life. That night, David finally does what he should have done a long time ago. He waits until Sarah gets home, then calmly tells her to sit down. She barely glances up from her phone, already annoyed. What now, David? That's when he places the paternity test results in front of her. For a second, she just stares at them. Then she lets out a small, breathy laugh. Oh my God. Are you serious? David doesn't say a word. He just waits. Sarah scoffs, shaking her head. I knew you were acting weird. I knew you were being paranoid. But this is insane. Just read it, David says coldly. Her smirk wavers. She picks up the paper, scanning the results. And that's when her entire demeanor changes. Her face drains of color. Her breathing hitches. For the first time in their marriage, Sarah is speechless. David leans forward, his voice eerily calm. Whose kid is she? Sarah swallows hard. David, whose kid is she, Sarah? His voice rises, and their daughter stirs in the next room. He lowers it again, barely keeping it together. Tears well in Sarah's eyes. I don't know. David lets out a sharp breath. You don't know? She shakes her head, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a mistake. I swear, it didn't mean anything. David laughs. Actually laughs. But there's no humor in it. A mistake? You let me believe she was mine for 3 years. That's not a mistake, Sarah. That's a choice. She reaches for his hand, but he pulls away like she burned him. David, please. We can fix this. No, he says, standing up. You did this. And I'm done. Sarah starts sobbing, but David doesn't care. He grabs a bag, throws in some essentials, and before she can stop him, he walks out the door. And just like that, their marriage is over. It's been 2 months since that night. David moved into an apartment, and he's filing for divorce. Sarah, predictably, tried everything to manipulate him into staying. Guilt, tripping, gaslighting, even dragging their daughter into it. But David? He's done. He's still figuring out his role in the little girl's life. He loves her, but he knows now. She was never his to begin with, and that hurts. As for Lisa, she was devastated when she found out. She cut Sarah off completely and hasn't spoken to her since. And me? Lisa and I are still together. Stronger than ever, actually. She told me she's glad I was there for David when he needed someone. And honestly, so am I. Because if there's one thing I've learned from this whole mess, It's that the truth always comes out, no matter how hard you try to bury it.